Yeah, we met at backstage at a concert, and Jesper brought me on as his orchestrator on some video games, and we just became friends, and it evolved from there.
Yeah, I was there to see the piece that you orchestrated.
That's right.
You know, and
we did 4 for this.
4?
Yes, for this project.
I mean, in some pieces was a very tight collaboration where we would go back and forth a lot of times. Other times it was, fewer times. But I think it's each piece we wrote was so different from the last, and I think that's really that's what happens when you start collaborating. You don't quite know what's going to go and how it's going to end up, and that's the exciting part of it.
Yeah, the process was really different on each one. Each one had a completely different DNA and genesis.
It works well because we're so different, and that's what attracts me working with someone else who does things that I don't do,
and vice versa.
So the difference between video games and trailers is really huge, especially musically. You have in some ways more freedom when you write for trailers because you don't have a piece of artwork or a scene or a video or gameplay that you try to support. But in other ways you have to support the rules of trailer, whether there's certain for example, the track has to keep rising, it has to keep crescendoing, and so you usually start out the track in a place that when you're at the end of the track it's a completely different intensity. And that's not necessarily true in video games. In video games you might need to get to the intensity right away, and then often you have to keep that intensity throughout the piece. Like if there's a combat situation, you want that intensity to be there throughout. But for trailers it's all about dynamics, it's all about creating something that keeps crescendo.
Well, good point. I think there is a certain similarity in the DNA as opposed to, let's say, film. I mean, there is a cinematic component to video games, but trailers share a certain energy and attitude, and a certain kind of almost like a rock and roll attitude toward the orchestra that's more, I think, part of the DNA of video games than it would be of film and TV. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and that's definitely the type of tracks we brought to this, to this project. We really wanted to try to do something different. So.
Yeah, something less formulaic and more challenging to the genre.
I think if you do quality work, it becomes timeless. But if you get lost too much in what's trendy at the moment, you're in a place where at any moment that whole thing could shift. I still like to think that you can keep it fresh without going where all the trends are at that very moment.
So with each one of these trailers, we were sort of breaking new ground, and with the idea that if it's cool and fresh and interesting, the editors out there could make it to the next hit rather than chasing the last trend.
And who knows when the album that comes out, what's going on at that moment. So I don't think you can look at it quite that, with those eyes. You have to broaden it and just kind of create something that's cool.
I'm Benoit Grey.
And I'm Jesper Kyd.
And we're thrilled to work on the A-List music catalog.